My friends, happy Tuesday to everyone. I've been a bit sick these past few days with the flu, but thank God I'm getting better. I couldn't even look at the computer, honestly. Anyway, let's get to the news because one of the biggest topics surrounding the Philadelphia Eagles right now is a story that refuses to disappear. Even after A.J. Brown's departure, questions continue to circulate about what really happened behind the scenes during the final years of his time in Philadelphia. And now, a new development has added even more fuel to the discussion. According to reports discussed in the source material, a conspiracy theory has been spreading across social media, linking former Eagles pass rusher Haason Reddick to the growing tension that allegedly developed around A.J. Brown during the 2023 season. The theory suggests that personal issues involving Reddick, Brown, and a woman may have contributed to the strange atmosphere that many observers felt around the team during that period. To understand why this story gained attention, it is important to remember the timeline. Haason Reddick was one of the most productive defenders in football during his years with the Eagles. After recording 16 sacks during the 2022 season, he became a major force in Philadelphia's defense and played a key role in the team's run to Super Bowl LIX. His production, combined with his ability to create pressure and force turnovers, made him one of the most important defensive players on the roster. Reddick's success did not happen overnight. After entering the NFL as a first-round pick, he needed time to find the right role. Once he settled into a pass-rushing position and added more weight to his frame, his career exploded. Between 2020 and 2023, he produced 4 consecutive seasons with double-digit sack totals, establishing himself as one of the league's most dangerous edge rushers. However, things eventually became complicated. After his dominant 2022 campaign, the edge rusher market continued to rise, and Reddick wanted a new contract. Although he still produced 11 sacks in 2023, there were signs of frustration. Philadelphia ultimately chose not to meet his contract demands, leading to his departure. That is where the conspiracy theory enters the conversation. The theory claims that a personal conflict involving Reddick and A.J. Brown created tension behind the scenes and may have contributed to a fracture in relationships inside the locker room. The story became popular because many fans had already noticed that something felt different around the Eagles during that period. The team that appeared so united during the Super Bowl run suddenly seemed to be dealing with distractions and internal frustration, but now one of the most connected figures within the Eagles organization has publicly pushed back against those claims. Dom DeSandro, better known to Eagles fans as Big Dom, reportedly dismissed the conspiracy theory entirely. According to information discussed in the source material, Big Dom was described as being extremely adamant that the story was false. His denial carries weight because of how closely connected he is to the organization. He is involved with players, coaches, and front office personnel, and has long been considered one of the most trusted figures inside the Eagles operation. If Big Dom is correct, then the theory that has dominated social media discussions may simply be fiction. That raises another question. If the reported personal conflict was not the source of A.J. Brown's frustration, what was? Another report mentioned in the source material points toward a football-related explanation instead. According to that information, some of Brown's dissatisfaction may have stemmed from his relationship with quarterback Jalen Hurts and aspects of the passing game. Specifically, there were suggestions that Brown became frustrated with situations in which he believed he was not being targeted often enough against certain defensive coverages. That perspective has sparked debate among Eagles fans because Brown's years in Philadelphia were unquestionably productive. During his 4 seasons with the organization, he developed into one of the NFL's premier receivers. He surpassed 1,000 receiving yards every year and earned multiple All-Pro honors while becoming one of the most feared playmakers in football. Because of that success, many fans struggle to understand why there appeared to be lingering frustration. From the outside, Brown and Hurts formed one of the league's most dangerous quarterback-receiver combinations. Together, they helped elevate the Eagles into annual championship contenders and delivered some of the most explosive offensive moments the franchise has seen in recent years. Even after Brown's trade, the conversation refuses to disappear. The denial from Big Dom has challenged one of the most talked about theories surrounding the Eagles, but it has not fully answered every question. Instead, it has shifted attention back toward football reasons and the complicated dynamics that can emerge when expectations inside a championship caliber locker room become extraordinary extraordinarily high. If the conspiracy theory is false and the issues were primarily football related, what do you think was the real reason behind A.J. Brown's unhappiness during his final years with the Philadelphia Eagles? While the discussion surrounding A.J. Brown continues to generate headlines, another fascinating storyline is beginning to emerge around the future of the Eagles roster, and it involves a name that every NFL fan recognizes: Max Crosby. The conversation started after a major move elsewhere in the NFC. The Los Angeles Rams made headlines by acquiring superstar pass rusher Myles Garrett, adding one of the most dominant defensive players in football to an already talented roster. The move immediately raised questions across the conference. If the Rams were willing to make such an aggressive move in pursuit of another championship, would Howie Roseman respond with something equally bold? That question gained even more attention when former NFL linebacker Bart Scott suggested that a major move could be coming and specifically mentioned Max Crosby as a potential target for Philadelphia. For Eagles fans, it is easy to understand why the idea became popular almost instantly. Crosby embodies many of the characteristics that Philadelphia supporters love. He plays with relentless energy, never seems to take a play off, and attacks every snap with an intensity that perfectly matches the identity Eagles fans have always embraced. His motor is legendary around the league, and his production speaks for itself. Over the last several seasons, Crosby has consistently been among the NFL's most productive edge rushers. Even while dealing with injuries, he has continued to generate sacks, quarterback pressures, and game-changing plays. He is the type of defender who can completely alter an offensive game plan before the game even begins. From a purely football perspective, it is easy to dream about what Crosby would look like wearing midnight green. Imagine opposing offenses trying to account for him while also dealing with the rest of Philadelphia's talented defensive front. The Eagles already possess one of the deepest defensive rosters in the league, and adding a player of Crosby's caliber would only strengthen that reputation. But once the excitement fades, reality begins to enter the conversation. The Eagles have already invested heavily in their defense. The organization recently committed significant resources to Jonathan Greenard. Jordan Davis also received a major contract extension, making him one of the highest paid players at his position. Meanwhile, Philadelphia knows that several young stars will eventually require enormous contracts of their own. Players like Jalen Carter, Quinion Mitchell, and Cooper DeJean represent critical pieces of the franchise's future. Those negotiations are coming, and none of them will be cheap. The front office must balance today's opportunities against tomorrow's financial commitments. That is where the Max Crosby discussion becomes complicated. Adding Crosby would not simply involve paying his salary. Philadelphia would almost certainly need to surrender valuable assets in a trade package. Draft picks would likely be involved, and potentially even young players currently viewed as important parts of the Eagles' future. That creates a difficult question. Would the Eagles really want to move on from promising young talent when the roster is already built to compete for championships? Consider players such as Nolan Smith and Jalix Hunt. Both are viewed as important pieces moving forward. Hunt in particular continues to develop and has shown the potential to become an increasingly impactful contributor. His rookie contract also provides tremendous value compared to the enormous salaries commanded by established stars around the league. If Philadelphia were to trade for Crosby, those roster dynamics would immediately become more complicated. The Eagles would certainly become deeper and more talented at edge rusher, but there would also be consequences. Younger players might see reduced opportunities. Future salary cap flexibility could become more challenging. Valuable draft capital would disappear. This is exactly why evaluating a potential blockbuster move is never as simple as comparing one player's talent to another's. Nobody doubts that Max Crosby is a difference maker. Nobody doubts that he would fit Philadelphia's culture. The question is whether acquiring him represents the smartest use of resources when the Eagles already possess one of the league's strongest foundations. What makes this discussion especially interesting is Howie Roseman's history. Throughout his tenure, Roseman has repeatedly shown a willingness to make unexpected moves. Time and time again, he has proven that no possibility should ever be completely dismissed. Eagles fans have learned over the years that if there is an opportunity to improve the roster, Roseman will at least explore it. That is why the speculation refuses to disappear. Some fans believe the Eagles should push all their chips to the center of the table and respond aggressively to the Rams' acquisition of Myles Garrett. Others believe Philadelphia is already positioned extremely well and should continue trusting the young core that has been assembled. Regardless of which side of the debate you fall on, one thing is clear: the NFC arms race is far from over. The Rams are loading up. Contenders across the conference are searching for every possible advantage. And as long as Howie Roseman is running the Eagles, the possibility of another headline-grabbing move will always exist. The possibility of a Max Crosby trade becomes even more intriguing when you look at the broader picture of what is happening across the NFC. The conference has become an arms race, with contenders constantly searching for ways to gain an edge over one another. Every major move made by a rival immediately creates pressure on the other contenders to evaluate whether they need to respond. That is exactly why the Rams' acquisition of Myles Garrett created such a massive reaction. Garrett is widely viewed as one of the premier defensive players in football, a player capable of taking over games by himself. Whenever a team adds a talent of that caliber, every other contender is forced to ask a difficult question. Are we still good enough to beat them? For Philadelphia, that answer may already be yes. One of the most overlooked aspects of the Eagles' current roster construction is the amount of young talent that has been accumulated over the last several years. While blockbuster trades often generate headlines, championship windows are frequently sustained through drafting and development. The Eagles have invested heavily in that philosophy, and the results are beginning to show. The defensive core remains one of the strongest foundations on the roster. Young players continue to develop, while established veterans provide leadership and stability. That combination is exactly what teams spend years trying to build. Because of that, some inside the fan base may actually view a major trade as unnecessary. The logic is simple. Why sacrifice future assets and potentially disrupt the long-term structure of the roster when the current group already has the talent required to compete at the highest level? That argument becomes even stronger when considering the financial realities facing the organization. The Eagles have never been afraid to spend money, but they also understand the importance of planning ahead. Future extensions for emerging stars will require enormous investments. Every decision made today affects flexibility tomorrow. That balancing act has become one of Howie Roseman's greatest strengths throughout his career. Time after time, he has managed to remain aggressive without completely sacrificing the future. Some general managers become obsessed with winning the next offseason headline. Roseman has typically focused on maintaining competitiveness year after year, ensuring that Philadelphia remains among the league's elite organizations. That approach is one reason the Eagles have remained relevant for so long. Even when roster turnover occurs, the team rarely experiences prolonged rebuilding periods. New contributors step into larger roles, younger players develop, and the organization continues moving forward. The discussion surrounding Max Crosby highlights that philosophy